Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my review of the new Halloween film. Reviewed the whole series for this a while back. I've been waiting for this one to come for quite some time now. It's been very hyped up, must be said. For anyone out there who's been a member of the Killer Flicks Facebook group, you will understand just how much within the horror community this film has been quite hyped up. Question is it worth the hype? Hard one to answer, I think, at this stage. I think whenever you go into a film that has been this much, this hyped up, it's very hard to see the wood for the trees. But I've got a feeling that it's one that will grow on me. I've got a feeling I will like this more with subsequent viewings later on down the line. Once everything's settled, all the dust has settled, I can come to it fresh on its own terms. So what we've got here is it's kind of business as usual, really. It's 40 years after the original movie. It's ignoring all the sequels that came after that movie, and we've got Jamie Lee Curtis back. We've even got Nick Castle back as the Shape, as Michael Myers. Like I say, business as usual. Michael Myers escapes and goes on the warpath, Laurie Strode gets caught in the crosshairs. I'm going to go into just a basic review of the film, and then I will go into spoilers. So I will let you know when I'm going to go into spoilers, just so you can go away and watch it first if you haven't seen it already. So just basically the review first. This film isn't perfect, I'll say that much. I think that it does a very good job of bringing our two main characters back, obviously Myers and Laurie Strode. I like what they do with both of them. It's good to have that kind of old look Myers back with us. It's always been the best. I did like the look that Rob Zombie gave his Michael Myers, but I didn't like his movies, so go figure. But yeah, good to have Nick Castle back. He's a lot more vicious here, a lot more brutal than he was in the original film. I think that's just a sign of the times, really. It certainly brings a lot of tension to certain scenes. A particular scene involving a bathroom stall, a toilet stall, which you'll have seen in the trailers. If you've seen the trailers, you'll know what I'm talking about. That scene is very tense. It's very brutal. So there is a little bit of Zombies Myers in that, I think, in that brutality. Maybe not quite the level that Zombie brings, but yeah, definitely a hint of that there. I will say there's a lot of periphery characters, even characters that aren't even given names or even given any association with our main characters, or an association even with our periphery characters. That come in and they're there essentially just as cannon fodder. There's one particular scene where Myers goes into this house and kills someone. Well, two actually. There's two like that, where that's it. They're literally nothing more than cannon fodder. Myers means business this time. I do think it shows us that he is indiscriminate, that he's on the warpath, and he just acts. He just acts on impulse. He goes and he does what he does. Going back to periphery characters, let's start with the periphery characters. So, we've got the three main kind of leads, so to speak, which is the Strodes, the three generations of the Strode ladies. So, we've got Laurie, then we've got her daughter, and we've got her granddaughter. All three of them I really like. I'll get into them a bit more in just a moment. But periphery characters. So we've got the granddaughter. She's got this group of friends around her, and again there is that kind of cannon fodder feel about them. They're set up, they're lined up in order to be taken out, and they're mostly douchebags as well, save for this one girl who's kind of like, she's a babysitter, which harkens back to the original Halloween, obviously. But yeah, the other two of them in particular, they're douchebags. They're like, just, again, periphery characters set up literally to be taken out by Myers. This is nothing new here. It's not a major criticism, because this is this is the nature of the beast. This is what slasher movies do. They set up a string of characters, and then we as fans of the franchise like to see the ways in which they're going to get taken out. So please don't take this as any huge criticism, but it's not going to feel fresh. I think if you're a fan of the original movies and that's what you came for, you're going to get it here, and I think you'll enjoy it, and I think you'll get something out of it. I do. I enjoy it. Whatever sick, twisted part of me there is enjoys it, but I can't claim that the film reinvents the wheel. It's business as usual, like I say. We're going back to the three leads. This is where the film is a bit more interesting for me. You got the character of Laurie, who has spent 40 years kind of dealing with that night, processing it, getting to grips with what happened, and training herself for the day that she believes it will happen again. And then you've got the daughter who was brought up in that environment, got out of it when she was 12 years old, and doesn't really want to be a part of it again. She thinks her mother is a bit of a wacko, a bit of a nut job, and let's face it, if we were her, we'd probably think the same thing. Having not lived what she'd lived through, only hearing it through the stories that she tells and the way she tells it. And then obviously, like I say, we've got the granddaughter who wants this attachment to her grandmother, and was never brought up by grandmother, so doesn't have that disdain for her that her mum would. She didn't go through all that, so she sees a grandmother who's trying to reach out to her. Yeah, a little bit crazy, but not harmful crazy. So I like that dynamic between these three characters, and how the events of the film are going to bring these three closely together in some way. And will it strengthen their relationship, or will it tear it apart for good? Now throw into that mix this doctor, Michael Myers' current doctor, a guy who replaced Loomis, at one point gets called the new Loomis in this, which might be a bit on the nose for some people. It is said very condescendingly by Laurie, but yeah, this guy Sartain, he's the new Loomis. I came out of this, and for me, he's the most interesting character, because at first I didn't like what they were doing with him. I felt like it kind of comes out of nowhere, and then the more I thought about it, the more I processed it, I started to actually like it. It started to make a bit more sense to me. And I will tell you a bit more about that when I get into spoilers. But I think whether you really like this film or not so much may hinge on his character as well. I think director David Gordon Green does a pretty good job on the visual side of things. It's a lot more modern with regards to the cinematography, the lighting effects that they use. The escape, when Michael Myers escapes, is very nicely lit indeed. Other scenes throughout as well, I think, are very nicely lit. The final act with the house, the way Laurie's constructed the defense systems, the security systems around this house. She puts these floodlights on, and we get these shafts of light coming through the house. Again, really creates some really interesting visual aesthetics there. So yeah, I've got no complaints in that department. I do have some complaints with the script, though, with regards to dialogue. This is definitely, I feel, Danny McBride's influence. There are times when the family is talking together, for example. So Laurie's daughter and her daughter, and then her husband. The three of them, when they're, so there's this scene in the kitchen, and he spills some peanut butter on himself, on a particular part of himself, and the line of dialogue that comes out and the way they speak to each other just feels like Pineapple Express McBride. It feels like those kind of characters that he's used to dealing with, and I don't really want that in this film. And again, with the babysitter, the friend who's the babysitter, there's this kid that she's babysitting, and the dialogue between them, yes, it does kind of feel natural, but it also feels like a very particular kind of film, and that film is the kind of film that Danny McBride is usually associated with. It's that kind of mentality where maturity in a child is seen by them having a knowledge of drugs or of sex or being able to curse, coming out with an F-bomb or something. It's like, oh, aren't they so mature? It's like, well, actually, no. Like, responsible adults are what kind of constitutes maturity. If you're responsible, that's maturity. And I think McBride comes from this school of Hollywood actors and whatnot, and creatives who, your sausage party types, and your knocked up and 40-year-old virgins and all that kind of stuff, which are fine for that kind of film. I get it, but not here, thanks. It doesn't derail it or anything, I'm not like, oh man, it's ruined the film. It's just, there's just a couple of moments where you notice it creep in, and it's just like, it's got McBride just written all over it. In some ways, I feel like the film is trying to be a commentary on the way we see evil, the way we're fascinated by evil, in fact. We've got these two characters at the beginning of the film, these reporters, vloggers really, but they've obviously been elevated to a particular level due to some case they worked in. They mention it at some point in the film, a murder case that they worked on. And I guess that's given them the kudos, the clout that they need to get access to Michael Myers, which is where we start at the beginning of the film. They get in to see Michael Myers, they want to interview him, they're trying to get something out of him about why he did what he did all those years ago, but it's like getting blood from a stone. They kind of symbolize the media's fascination with murderers, with serial killers and things like that. And then we get, as I say, this character of the Doctor, this guy who's essentially replaced Loomis, and his thoughts on what's going on kind of, again, feed into that idea of, I guess, the people who watch films like this, we're fascinated by these characters like Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, these evil characters who there's no shades of grey with them. They're pure evil. Why are we fascinated by them? And I think this film is kind of trying to ask that in some ways through these characters, through these reporters, and through this Doctor, this Loomis Mark II, so to speak. I think the answer that we are given ultimately is that evil is indiscriminate, but it does have a way of infecting everyone who comes near it. That old adage that if you look into the abyss long enough, the abyss stares back. And that's kind of what we get with Laurie here. She fell into that abyss so many years ago, and now she's in a very dark place. And I don't really see Michael having gone for her in this film had certain events not taken place. With that point in mind, I will get into spoilers now, actually. I think it's a few things I just want to discuss. So if you've not seen the film, you do want to go and check it out before hearing any spoilers, then please turn off now, I guess. So the Doctor, he basically turns into this nutter who is clearly more obsessed with Michael Myers than anyone else, particularly what it is that makes him tick, why he does what he does. Is he pure evil incarnate? Is there something going on there? Is there a choice being made by him on a conscious level? Or is it all something that is underneath that not even he understands, not even Michael understands? And he's obsessed with that idea. And it is essentially him and his meddling that brings Michael to Laurie. There's none of that kind of supernatural element in that regard of him kind of just knowing where Laurie is and going after her. He literally wouldn't be there if it wasn't for this Doctor. As far as Michael's concerned, from what we see of him, he turns up in Haddonfield and he just goes on the warpath. He just goes into houses, kills people, and goes off again. That's it. And I'm sure he would just do that all night if he was just left to his own devices. But he isn't left to his own devices, you know. By chance, he stumbles upon Laurie's granddaughter, or more to the point, her friend, who he kills. And then it's only through that this doctor, along with the sheriff, kind of stumble on Michael, find him. And then it's this doctor who essentially points Michael in the direction of Laurie in order to see what is the outcome going to be there. How are these two people who've got this history together, how are they going to react when they see each other? And I think, again, that feeds into this notion, this idea of us as an audience. That's what we want to see. You know, we want to see these two characters meet up again. And I think that's a way of kind of putting us as a character in the film, and holding a mirror up to us and saying, you're weird, really. You know, like me, you know, you, whoever likes these kind of movies, we are a bit strange because we do get caught up with this man in a mask going around killing people. Why are we drawn to it? Why do we want to see it? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. That's something you have to answer yourself. But I think that's what the film's main concern is, and it does it through this doctor character. And that's why I came to like what they did with him, because I feel that, that's where it goes. You may completely disagree with that. You may hate this character, and I can understand that. I can understand why, because it does kind of come out of the blue. You know, he just randomly turns into a nut job. But yeah, I think when you look at it in those terms of maybe what they're trying to say, the mirror they're trying to hold up to the audience, then I think it becomes a bit more interesting and validates the reason for being there, I guess. I like the way they end the film. Myers is essentially dead. We know he isn't. You know, like if they don't want him to be, you know, if they don't want him to be, they can find some BS reason to get him out of that house. But for the sake of argument, let's say this tanks at the box office and they don't come back for another one. Then for those that are fans, those that enjoyed it, I feel like they've got a satisfying ending. They've got a closed ending. You know, they've not been left hanging with an ending that requires a sequel. You know, this film doesn't require a sequel. There's many places they can go if they want to do one, which is interesting, but they don't have to. And that's the way they should end films. You know, I'm sick of this kind of modern day thing of dropping you on a cliffhanger, and then, you know, if they don't come back for a sequel, as a fan, you're kind of shot in the foot, really. So they don't do that here, and I appreciate that. I think the final act of this film, in much the same way that H2O was, is very strong. I really like the last 20-25 minutes. It's satisfying, you know, for the build-up that we've had. You know, knowing that Laurie is going to be meeting Michael, coming face to face with Michael again, it's quite satisfying the way it ends up. I also think the first half hour, the way they get Michael, you know, free again, just that whole build up to him getting loose, the way they bring all the characters back and set up where we are at this current stage in time, I really like as well. I think where most of the weaknesses lies in the midsection, and again, I think that comes from having these periphery characters that, quite frankly, I just don't care about. I think overall this film is very satisfying. I think it's going to be let down a little bit by the hype machine. I think a lot of people are going to come down pretty hard as a result of that. But I think when this comes out on Blu-ray, you know, and a lot of time has passed, the dust has settled, I think people will get into this a lot more. I think on repeat viewings, it might be a grower. So, yeah. Is it the best sequel to Halloween? I don't know. I think I still like 4 and H2O. I know a lot of people really don't like H2O, but I think this film, this new one, it kind of takes a lot of its stuff stuff from H2O in some regard. I'm not saying it's a carbon copy. It's clearly a very different film, but just imagine if H2O had been a much more brutal kind of rendition of what it was, and then you get this, I guess. Yeah, there is a certain lack of originality there, which brings it down a little bit for me. But as a fan of the franchise, I gotta say this is definitely one of the better sequels. I would say it was top 5 for me overall out of all the Halloween films, which quite frankly is pretty good. You know, we can't ask for more than that. I think as a Halloween film, I would probably give it a 4 out of 5. As a film in general, you know, when competing with all the other movies out there, I think this is a solid 3.5 out of 5, and that's what I'm going to give it. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5 from me. But what about you? Have you seen this film? What did you think about it, and where do you think it compares with the other films? And speaking of the other films, please do check out my reviews for them. I have reviewed them all. I will put a link to the playlist for that in the description below, along with the ranking video that will be in the playlist as well. But yeah, do let me know your thoughts on this film and the franchise as a whole. Until next time, crack it.